Welcome to Key Roots, the Key Roots of Sex Addiction. My name is Colin. And today I am super excited because I get to present to you an interview I did with Heidi Kinsella. Heidi runs Fourth Dimension Counseling out of the Seattle, Washington area. And she is a certified sex addiction therapist, a certified partner trauma therapist, and a certified couples betrayal therapist, among a lot of other credentials. Certifications coming from the International Institute of Trauma and Addict Professionals, the IITAP. In this interview, Heidi and I are going to discuss emotional sobriety, which is not too common a topic when we're talking about sex addiction and betrayal. So, without further ado, here's our interview.
A couple of weeks ago, we got together and, we decided to, have this recording, this interview. And you had said that one really important topic for you, or an interesting topic, would be emotional sobriety. And I was just, in the realm of sex addiction, I've heard that before, but I was just wondering, what emotional sobriety is to you and why you think it's so important.
Yeah, it's a topic that we talk a lot about in AA. I've been sober in AA for 36 years, and it's a Bill W. actually wrote a paper on it, and it's something that we discuss in our kind of recovery program as far as what it looks like once you get sober, what comes next. And I don't hear people talk about it as much kind of in the S recovery world. There's some aspects of it I think do get addressed, like, empathy building, transparency, sex addiction being an intimacy disorder, some of those things. But um, how I describe emotional sobriety is like physical sobriety. If you think about like the 12 steps, that's the first step. So the first step is the only step that addresses whatever the issue is, whether it's sex or alcohol or drugs or whatever. And then the other 11 steps are the rest of the story. And so the rest of the story would be what I would consider emotional sobriety. So we can't even work on emotional sobriety until we have the baseline sobriety. So the work I do with people is to help them stop the problematic behaviors that are causing issues for themselves, their partners, their friends, their family, friends, whatever. And then once we get that dialed in, or usually sometimes at the same time, because when I'm starting that work with someone, I'm also already starting on empathy work as it relates to the partner. And I would consider empathy work emotional sobriety. So I start those simultaneous because if we want to stay in that relationship, if we're only dealing with physical sobriety, we're completely ignoring what's happening in the relationship. That relationship can fall apart and they could be sober and they can be alone. So I do start the empathy work early. Um, but I would consider emotional sobriety goes beyond just having empathy. It is the integrity that we seek after when we get sober. It's following through with what you say you're going to do. It's being transparent. And, if you're partnered up with someone and you've been lying and cheating and doing those things, it's not only not doing those things, but it's being willing to be fully transparent. It's being able to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings or talk about things that are difficult. It's not getting defensive when your partner is triggered and upset because of something you did in the past, and it's being able to hold space for her. Um, in the world of AA, like we look at our character defects in 6 and 7, and it's really like taking a hard look at all those other things besides the acting out behaviors that are causing us problems and then causing other people problems. So the emotional sobriety piece is kind of the rest of the story. And oftentimes I have guys that they'll just say, well, I've been sober for 90 days and that's wonderful. I mean, I celebrate sobriety, but if all you have is just sobriety and you're not doing the rest of it, you can stay really miserable and you can lose a lot of other things that are important to you.
Hmm. What comes to my mind when you say that is that, a lot of guys in the sex addiction realm, because that's what I deal with, but
Mm-hmm.
once they get sober, they quit, all of the other work. They'll stop going to their groups. They'll stop, reading and writing, whatever is the other work is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's because all they're doing is focusing on the sexual sobriety, not
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And, like, so I'm a CSAT. So, like, almost all of my clientele is either sex addicts, partners of sex addicts, or couples in some substance use, but it's mostly sex. And I see that, and that's one of the reasons why this topic's so important to me, because I'm also a betrayed partner, and knowing what that feels like to be betrayed. To a lot of the women who come in to see me, or even the guys who come in to see me, the women, like this. There's this old adage that really came from the world of AA and substance use disorder. That type of treatment is, each of us are going to stay on our own side of the street. You're going to work on your stuff. I'm going to work on my stuff. But what happens with sex addiction treatment, with betrayal trauma, which is different from being a partner of an alcoholic. Being a partner of alcoholic, those partners are often pouring out the booze, or they're calling in sick for their partner. That they know about it, because alcoholism or drug addiction is pretty obvious. With sex addiction, there's secrecy, and so when they find out, their experience is betrayal trauma versus codependency. So we look at it a little bit differently. And so when the person stops the acting out process, if they're just on their side of the street and they're off, so they're off having a secret life and they're acting out, then they get sober. Now they're going to meetings, they're meeting with their sponsor, they're going to see a therapist, but they're not talking about any of that. The partner is still left out. I mean, she's still on the outside and she feels that. And with it being an intimacy disorder, part of the treatment is really to help, not just to help the coupleship, which I have a passion for, but really for him and his own recovery, to treat the intimacy disorder piece. The way we do that is we teach him how to be vulnerable in group with other men, or in his 12-step community with other men. And then we teach them how to take that home and to be vulnerable with his wife. But if they're on their own side of the street and there's no one helping them do that, she's just left hanging. And and if nobody is saying like baseline sobriety isn't enough, like I'm glad when people are sober. I mean, I celebrate my sobriety. It's important. But if you're just like, that's if the goal is only to be sober and then you don't do the rest of it, you could it can feel like being a dry drunk, because there's a spiritual malady that comes with addiction. So if you're only stopping the behavior but you're not doing the other stuff, and you stop going to meetings, you stop going to group, and you stop doing the work, then you don't have the thing that you used to use in order to numb out, because you're not doing the behavior anymore. And you don't have all the outer circle stuff that we would do in order to like help build those neural networks, and to get dopamine in healthier ways, like prayer, meditation, exercise, or whatever. So if you're not doing those things, then you're sitting there with that pain or whatever you're trying to numb without the numbing agent, and you can get pretty miserable.
Well, and that, when you say that, the two things that come up. One is that, if you're sitting there in all of that pain, you're probably, wanting to deal with it, which, to me, it seems like the likelihood of you going back into your addiction is pretty high, because you've got nothing, to cope with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's just a matter of time. I mean, it's one person can call it white knuckling. Partners will often call it like you're checking boxes. You're just doing the things that you're to be told to do, but there's actually not an internal change. And if that is true, we call it in the therapy world second order change. But if that doesn't happen, then eventually you'll go find something in order to numb yourself out. Now, sometimes people will play whack-a-mole. They'll stop this sexual action out, but next thing you know, they're overeating, or they're overworking, or they're using alcohol or marijuana or whatever it is. But eventually they'll do something to numb that pain if they don't come up with something else that's healthier for them to be able to deal with their uncomfortable emotions.
Okay. So again, so the first thing that I was thinking of is that this really affects like the individual in his own personal sex
Hmm.
addiction, whatever
Hmm.
addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if he doesn't deal with his emotional sobriety, what I was hearing you say earlier, was that if he's not emotionally sober, that it's also affecting, his partner.
Yeah.
And what does it look like, if he's not emotionally sober in the relationship?
It looks like the first thing I notice is a lot of defensiveness. So let's say, um, let's say they're at the let's say they're at the Puyallup Fair, which is our state fair here in Washington, and he's looking over at the scone line because he wants to decide whether he's going to stand in that long line. And she looks at him, and he's looking at this. He's looking in a direction, and there's a woman over there whose breasts are showing. And so she gets triggered because she thinks he's staring at this woman, and she gets mad. So she gets triggered, her brain gets hijacked. She comes out at him with a lot of energy, and he immediately gets defensive. And, you know, I was looking at you one. I can't believe you're ruining our day. Why are you always accusing me of something? Like, just like, of course, her first reaction is hot. So I'm not saying it isn't, because she's upset, right? Um, Rather than, if a person's working a program, and he has some emotional sobriety, and he's done some empathy work, he's able to like say to himself, like, she's triggered. I'm sure she saw something that triggered her. I know, and this is an all internal dialogue at first. I know in the past I used to objectify women all the time. Like, I've done that to her. And so I'm going to be curious. So internal dialogue. I'm going to be curious about what's going on with her. So rather than getting defensive and mad at her, he'll say to her, I can see her really triggered and upset. What's going on? Or she may just be saying, I can't believe you're looking at that woman. So he knows what it is. And then what he says is, um, I can totally understand why you would be upset, because in the past, I used to objectify women all the time. Of course, that's going to upset you. And then he pauses and he lets her system calm down. And then he'll say something like, do you want to know what I was looking at? And she'll say, of course she'll want to know. I was actually looking at the stone line, and I didn't even see the woman you're talking about. Rather than starting with, I can't believe you're mad at me. I didn't even see a woman. Why are you doing this? So like, one looks like he's defensive, he's twisting things around, he's making it her fault, and one is really understanding that he's hurt her in the past. Now, notice when I give this example, at no point am I telling him to apologize for something he hasn't done. I'm never asking somebody to apologize for something they haven't done. But there is a way to acknowledge what he's done in the past and hold space for her. So defensiveness is one. Um, Not doing what he says he's going to do, not following through with what says he's going to do, making unilateral decisions without, checking in with his partner, not honoring her boundaries, not being transparent, being secretive. I mean, all those kind of behaviors can really feel like active addiction, and for her can be really triggering. Even if he's like physically sober, if he's doing those behaviors, the relationship it'll continually like trigger her, and then she'll keep ramping up, and then he'll be mad, like, why is she always triggered? And it's because he's not showing up with emotional sobriety.
Sounds like what you just said is like when he gets defensive, that she can interpret that as like covering up,
Mm-hmm.
or, or
Exactly.
or lying too. I mean, he's probably, sex addicts are notorious liars.
Mm-hmm.
So if he gets defensive, it looks like lying again, and then she just can't trust even more. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. Lying is another thing. Like, lying is another thing is a lack of emotional sobriety. It's a lack of integrity, right? It's a lack of. It just certainly doesn't look like good recovery.
yeah.
It looks like active addiction, even if he's not acting out.
When you say that, like, I've had disclosures, and when I've worked, with full disclosures, therapeutic disclosures, where I've asked the guys to tell all of his lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason is, like, I've had people who, like, were smoking weed, or something like that, and their wife never knew that he was smoking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it came like as a shock to her. And I, like, one of the reasons I've said to say that in the disclosures, because after disclosure, if a lie comes up like that, it can really, damage her trust again, where she's so distrustful anyway. It's hard to grasp any trust if he has any small lies or anything like that. Again, that just continues to deteriorate her trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a weird concept, but one of the things that I do with guys when I'm working with guys is I teach the concept of a lie with correction and without. So any major lie that has to do with acting out is a relapse because it goes with the acting out. So I'm not talking about that. But what I see with people in addiction is in their life with their wife, they have their life with their wife and their family and their work and all that stuff is and I believe that's all real. So that's here, and I believe it's real for most men. Not all men, but most men it's real. And then over here is their addiction, and their addiction is surrounded by a web of lies, and the lies protect the addiction. And they get really used to telling lies to kind of manage stuff. So when they first get sober, the lies fly out of their mouth before they have a chance to engage their frontal lobe at all. Like it's literally automatic. So when I used to work at the Meadows and we would do boundaries, a partner would come in and she'd say, "My boundary around your behavior of lying is if you lie, I'll divorce you." And what would happen is like if lies are flying out of his mouth about dumb stuff. We're not talking having sex with a prostitute. We're talking, I'm at this store, not that store. But if he says he's at this store and he's at that store, that's going to undermine trust, and she's going to wonder if anything else he's saying is true. So he needs to learn not to do that. And so the way I teach that is I'll say, tell me a sport that you like to do that you can spend money or activity. And one I get a lot. When I went to the Meadows, it was Arizona, so I get golfing a lot. So I'd say, okay, so let's say you guys decide together that since you're spending so much money on therapy, that you're not going to buy any new golf clubs or anything for golfing right now. And he's agreed to that. And then you text him and you say, "Where are you?" And he immediately says, "I'm at a grocery store, I'm at Safeway." And in his head, he's saying things have finally calmed down. He's at the golf store. Things have finally calmed down. I don't want to upset her. I haven't bought anything. I haven't done anything wrong. So in his head, he's justifying his reason for lying. But the truth is, it's a lie. So what I want him to do is I want him to say as quickly as he realizes, because it flies out, like it just like bam, it's out there, to say immediately, "That's actually a lie. I'm at Safeway. I'm not at the golf store." Like to immediately correct it. And then eventually what he'll learn to do is he'll learn to like notice when his heart starts to race and he wants to lie, he'll be able to stop himself. And if he learns to correct it and she sees him doing that, that can actually earn back trust. It's a weird phenomenon, but it can earn back trust when she sees him doing that. Versus if the rule is if you ever lie, I'll divorce you, then what will happen is that he'll be afraid to tell the truth around things that are, I don't want to say smaller because I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying any lie is okay. But when things fly out of his mouth, it's going to be harder for him to be truthful because he's afraid he's just going to divorce him. So it gives a little wiggle room to teach him how to be truthful. And at any time, she could say, "You know what, this chronic lying is too much for me. I'm out." But it's a tool to teach him how to stop lying, because my experience with addicts is that there's usually a lot of lying that happens in the beginning of.
Well, and as you're talking about that, I'm noticing one of the words that you're utilizing is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got emotional sobriety going on here,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing a lot of fear that his what you called his real family or his real life,
Mm-hmm.
or he could lose that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got to deal with his fear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's really, I guess, risking his relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way to deal with the fear is to get vulnerable and tell the truth.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, like I hear almost like exposure therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to go through the hard stuff in order to get
Mm-hmm.
acclimated
Mm-hmm.
to that part of recovery.
Yeah. One of my therapist friends, Eric Idens, used to always say, like, that sometimes you actually need to hurt the partner in order to help the coupleship heal. And what he means by that is you hurt the partner when you actually tell the truth and you say something you know is going to be hurtful. You say to her, you admit to her, you just lied. And it's going to hurt her and it's going to upset her. But sometimes that's what you need to do in order to actually have the relationship have truth and vulnerability and transparency. And that is actually going to help the coupleship grow. And hiding the truth is the opposite of vulnerability and trust building.
So,
But it's counterintuitive, right?
yeah, I was going to say, because, again, like coming back to that fear, it's like, if I tell the truth, I know I'm going to hurt her. There's that additional thought that comes in, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he doesn't
Yeah.
want to be a jerk,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he just feels sad because she hurts, and
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
hurt. He's got to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say I'm a jerk, what makes me think of is these guys the shame will come up.
Mm.
And then sometimes when shame comes up, I'm a jerk, I'm a piece of, what, they're, overwhelmed with shame. And then what can happen is they go to, I can't believe I did this. I'm such a horrible person. And they collapse in their shame.
Yeah.
And then when they do that, it's still all about them. So she's over there hurting. She's expressing her pain. Rather than being able to stay with her in her pain and be curious and hold space for her, he collapses in his shame. And then in that, I'm such a bad person. Now she's left there standing there by herself going, okay, it's still all about him. So part of the work is to help him have some resilience to like deal with his shame, but stay present with her.
Well, so I'm hearing you say again, like, well, not again, but this is really a tricky thing, it seems, because it's like he can't get defensive,
Mm-hmm.
yet he can't like avoid the situation either. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if he gets defensive, he's now a liar, and he's probably hiding his
Mm-hmm.
unfaithful behaviors. And if he shrinks and avoids a situation, he's also kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, this recovery thing and having integrity and having emotional sobriety is hard. And it doesn't happen overnight. And there needs to be room for some messiness, which is why I talk about line with correction. That's why I talk about even like collapsing in shame and just say, okay, I realize I'm making this about me. Give me a minute. I need to step away because I'm getting overwhelmed. I want to go call someone and get myself regulated, and then I'll be back. And then they have to say when they're going to come back. But the whole process of really learning how to show up and hold space for a partner or to live in their own integrity, it's hard work. And it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Well, you just mentioned like a tool. I noticed that you um, talked about taking a break.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one tool that you mentioned. You mentioned like
Mm-hmm.
how to actually. You gave an example earlier of how to like actually follow a process
Mm-hmm.
of like handling a conversation like this. Um, I don't know if we have enough time right now or not to like learn these tools, but it seems like there's several of them. Maybe, I mean, is there 10 of them? Are there 5 of them? I mean, what are all these tools? Where do they find them?
Well, I mean, there's some great tools. So, Carol Jurgensen Sheets has a book called "Help Her Heal,"
Okay.
that teaches. It's really about building empathy for men. It has a lot of these tools in there. So it has a tool called AVR, which I kind of walked through a little earlier. Acknowledge her experience. Acknowledge her trigger. I see her triggered. Validate. It makes sense to me. You're triggered because I've done this a lot to you in the past. And then you pause and you wait for her system to calm down. And then R stands for reassure. Would you like to know what I was looking at? I was looking at the scone line, and I want you to know that I am solidly sober and I'm doing everything in my power not to hurt you again. I don't want to hurt you again. Now, you can't promise you'll never act out, but you can say you're doing everything in your power one day at a time. Matt Winger from the Beginning Institute, I heard him give a lecture on this, and he likes to add a C at the beginning of AVR. So CAVR, and that is curiosity. So when she's experiencing pain, to be curious about it, to calm yourself down and really ask questions. Like, tell me more about your pain. Like that takes guts, right? Tell me more about your pain. Um, Another tool, which I'm trying to think, this is probably in Carol's book, but this is a tool that we as CSATs talk about a lot, is taking a break. So if you're getting dysregulated, or if you do parts work, a part of you is kind of crashing through and getting blended and kind of taken over, for you to be able to say out loud, like, I'm feeling flooded and overwhelmed. I need 10 minutes to just go get myself re-regulated and call my sponsor or call my group leader or whatever it is, and I'll be back. So if you're going to take a break, it's important to say how much time you need and that you're going to be back, and then you have to come back and finish a conversation. Otherwise, the other person feels like they're being abandoned. And so then you go get yourself regulated and then you come back. And either person can do that. And there needs to be some safety in the relationship where either person, if they're getting flooded. The thing about that is partners can get step outside of their own integrity really easily. When they get triggered, they can come out the guy with, and I say I'm using this gender because almost all of my people who are in recovery from sex addiction are men. So in my case, so that's the way it is. So that's why I'm using those genders. But you know, I'll just speak for myself. I will say when I was in this was a long time ago, I would yell, I would scream, I would call names, I would do things that are completely outside of my integrity when I was being flooded. And I see that a lot in the partners I work with. I'm not alone in that. And so one of the things I work with partners is also self-regulating. It's not just the guy who has to self-regulate when he's being defensive or when he's, you know, lying. I mean, of course he needs to learn to do those things too, but somewhere in her process, and I have a lot of empathy and a lot of patience for women because I understand their brains being hijacked and they've been really hurt. But I also know as a person who's been through this that at some point in the process, if you're stepping outside your integrity, at some point it hurt me because I stepped outside of my integrity. So then I had to learn as a partner self-regulation tools so I can stay within my own integrity. And so partners can also say, I'm feeling flooded before I say something I regret. I need to step away. I need to self regulate. And both people should be able to do that.
So yeah, so emotional sobriety is not just a sex addict thing or struggling with sex addiction. It's
Mm-hmm.
for partners.
Yeah, I would probably not call it emotional sobriety for partners because partners don't like being told they need to be sober. But I would say like being able to have emotional regulation, being able to live within their integrity. It's the same types of things, right? Um, I use the word emotional sobriety for myself because I am in recovery, but not all partners identify as being in recovery. But I think partners would identify with when I'm triggered, I get outside my integrity. And I'll go so far as to say, partners will say, when I'm triggered, I don't show up as a mom I want to show up as. I'm harsher to my children. I'm not sleeping well, so I'm not as productive at work. I mean, it affects so many areas of their lives. And so there is an aspect of the work they do that does address that. But when they first come into recovery, I'm not going after them for their stepping outside their integrity. What I'm doing is really acknowledging that this happened to them. They didn't ask for it. They're experiencing trauma. And somewhere along the line, we'll start talking about like, the way you're reacting to this is this aligned with your own values? But I don't start there when I'm working with someone.
Okay. The other thing that came to mind just as you were saying that was that I know some guys that they're very actually regulated. I would say that they're
Mhm.
emotionally sober.
That's great.
And when they come emotionally sober to the relationship,
Hmm.
actually, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. That women will actually feel manipulated or feel like he's fake.
Hmm.
And I actually had a couple a long time ago where he actually changed really quick, really fast. It was
Hmm.
almost like magical. I don't know how to say it, but
Hmm.
he changed so fast, and his wife actually divorced him
Oh, wow.
um, because he was so like loving and caring, and she
Hmm.
he was just uh, like mentally insane, and tried to
Hmm.
like her to stay. So
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that or have any comments on that.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I can. There's two sides of that. I've literally had men tell me straight up that I tell women about my recovery. I am vulnerable. I talk in such a way in order to manipulate them to lower their defenses in order to get them to trust me. I've straight up have guys say that to me. So I know that that is a thing that guys do. Some guys do that. A small percentage do that. Um, so there's that. And then there's the flip side of what you just described. And what I tell women is like, um, so there's this thing that Bill and Ginger Burkhoff, they wrote this book called Couple's Guide to Intimacy. I'll just gotta say they're rewriting it right now because it's from an old codependent model. The beginning of the book, the end of the book was really about healthy sexuality. But one of the things they teach is in order to build trust back, there's 3 phases you go through. The first is verification, which is the transparency piece. This is where we have polygraphs. This is where we have disclosure. It's where we have filters on our phones. It's being willing to be open, like with bank statements. And it's that transparency piece. Verification, you're verifying things. The second phase is witnessing. This is when you see them going to meetings, you see them doing their book work, you see them doing recovery related things. And in order to get to the third phase, you have to go through the first 2 phases. The third phase is experiencing. And that is when you just experience them different. They feel different. Their energy is different. They're showing up different. You can just feel the change. So what I tell partners is that it looks like the guy has doing a lot of different behaviors. To not trust him, I straight up say it, I'll say it in front of him, until you've seen the 3 phases and you literally feel him as showing up different. It's a different energy. He's just different. Once you get there, then you will naturally start to trust him. Your walls will start to come down. And that's when healthy sexuality starts to become a thing, because you don't want to be sexual until you feel you can trust. So if all of a sudden he abruptly changes everything and your gut is telling you something's off and you can't, it doesn't feel right, I will validate her experience and say, you don't have to trust him until you can feel that this feels real to you. And really allow her to trust her gut. Because if he's been lying to her for a long time, there's no way that she can know whether it's real until she can see it over time, and she needs to see it consistent over time.
Yeah, this seems like this could be really like sensitive, um, because I think guys can get really tired of waiting. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because my experience is this can take years, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a guy might be, working on his emotional sobriety, and he's hoping, that
Mm-hmm.
would be like sexually intimate again, and
Mm-hmm.
that, sexual intimacy can be really traumatizing
Mm-hmm.
to re-engage for a woman. And
Yeah.
so, there after the guy has been like, I don't know if I would say perfect, but he's been doing well, and
Mm-hmm.
his wife or partner can see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guy continues to seem to have to wait until the woman decides that it's time to, kind of like step off the cliff and engage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super scary for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen after like a sexual experience where even after that, then the partner will go cry.
Oh, for sure. It's really common. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or to get really angry again.
Yeah. Really common. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the guy, again can fall apart, get really pissed off, or excuse my
Mm-hmm.
language, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, because he thought that this was just going to be an amazing experience, and it turned out to
Mm-hmm.
be a fight.
It's very common. After they're sexual, after they are, after they are sexual for the first time, or have a different type of um, deep vulnerability. For her, she lowers her guard, and she makes sure she opens herself up, and then it freaks her out. Then all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And she didn't have an angry outburst. She can back up. I mean, it's almost predictable in my experience. It happens a lot. And to your first point, like, yeah, I mean, if you've been cheating on your wife for 20 years and lying to her and having a secret life, um, it's going to take what it takes to earn that back, and it may take a while. And I would say a guy who is working a good program, um, you know, is willing to wait. Now, I will say this: I mean, I've had guys wait for years and then have the best relationship, way beyond what they ever expected. But they're willing to just stay the course and work their program and and I have seen it go on for years. I will also say that sometimes women, because they're not the ones that caused the problem, they're not the ones that lied and cheated, that they'll say, I don't want to go to therapy, I don't want to do the work, or I don't have work to do. Like, they're pissed off that they have to even go, and they refuse to go. And then he gets sober and he does the work and he's going to therapy, and she's not doing any of it. She's just sitting there. and any partner who's been through this has a right to handle it however she wants. So to be clear, I'm not judging. I'm just saying this is a scenario that happens. Sometimes he'll have to make the decision to leave the relationship at some point because the relationship can't be healed, in my opinion, unless both people get some therapy and some support. So even though she's not the cause, she didn't do it, she shouldn't have to do anything because it's betrayal trauma. Trauma's happened to her. Her brain has been affected by it. In order to get to the point where they can have real intimacy again, there's going to be a process where she's going to need to go through some healing. And if she doesn't want to do it, I've seen it where guys have had to leave the relationship because of that. And then what happens is he feels like a jerk because he acted out to begin with, and then he feels like a bigger jerk because he divorces her. I've seen that scenario. What I see most of the time is that the guy gets into recovery, he does good work, she does her own therapy. It takes a long time to heal, and he loves her and he's willing to wait. And she does the work and she does the work and it takes a long time and he has to wait. And this goes on, and then eventually she gets to the point where she starts to trust him again, and then the healing, then they start to integrate again.
It just seems like, you know, that this healing process can be really intricate. One thought that was going through my head was that, you know, I think people going through the recovery process don't know what they don't know.
Hmm.
All of these maybe nuanced, experiences that come up, like we were just talking about,
Yeah,
and it can be difficult. And
yeah,
yeah,
it's really difficult. And I know we just have a couple of minutes left, but I really believe in recovery from addiction, and believe in recovery from sex addiction and betrayal trauma. And I know people can get sober and stay sober. I believe people can get sober and relapse does not have to be part of the story. I 100% believe that. I believe that partners can heal from this betrayal. And I have many couples who get to the other side of this, and it takes years. It's not a few months. It takes years, but they have the most beautiful intimacy. It's based on transparency. It's based on honesty. They're able to talk about difficult things. They're not arguing about the garbage anymore. I mean, they've gotten it. It's like going through fire, and these diamonds are created, and they have a beautiful relationship. And I know many couples who have them. I mean, they could be the envy of other couples. This type of intimacy, this type of recovery can bring, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of hard work.